Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Girl in Love with Tech podcast. My name is Rachel Irabor. I'm a Microsoft Power Platform developer and a Dynamics 365 developer. Our special guest for today is Scott Durow, who is absolutely amazing. And we are going to be talking about his personal experience in Microsoft Power Platform. We're going to be talking about the developer experience on Microsoft Power Platform, CoPilots, and also AI on Microsoft Power Platform. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Rachel. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. It's really nice to be here. Makes a change because I normally on the XRM Toolcast on the other way round. So, maybe you need to come on the XRM Toolcast next.
Yeah,
Maybe
that would be amazing.
yeah, and then we can kind of do the opposite way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really great to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. So, if you can introduce yourself so that we can know more about you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Scott Durow, and I
Yeah.
am a solution architect. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and
Yeah.
today is the day of the renewal.
Yes.
So I have been renewed for another year. So I've been an MVP.
Congrats.
So, so yeah, I've been an MVP since 2000 and goodness me, 2013. It's a long time ago now.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's really amazing.
So this will be my going into my 10th year, and
Yeah.
and it's been a real privilege to be part of that journey and see how everything changes and how
Yeah.
things have moved around. But I came
Yeah.
from the UK, so as you probably can tell by my accent,
Accents.
I, yeah, I'm not from. I live in Canada now, so I'm not.
Okay.
My wife is Canadian. We moved
Yeah.
over here, and yes, I'm living on the west coast of Canada,
Okay.
which is lovely. It's a lovely day outside. I've
Yeah.
just been in the garden eating blueberries from the blueberry. I feel like I've got
Yeah.
some blueberries in my teeth, which is I should
No,
have checked
nothing is
before. I should have
no,
checked right before we
nothing
went
is
live.
showing. Nothing is actually showing. Yeah, nothing is showing. So you're good to go. Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for accepting my invite. And I think this is the first time we are this talking
Yeah.
visually. Yeah.
I've watched your podcast and listened to your podcast before, so I kind of I feel like I know you already, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so for our listeners, maybe this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about Microsoft Power Platform, or you have been hearing about Microsoft Power Platform, but you do not know what is Microsoft Power Platform. So we have Scott Durow to save the day and explain what is Microsoft Power Platform.
So if these people that have just stumbled upon this from just browsing browsing, I don't know, cat videos or something, and they've just
Yeah,
stumbled on this stuff, or maybe I don't know, you've kind of come from a pro code world, maybe
yeah,
building stuff, or full stack React maybe, or just
yeah.
traditional software, and you've started to look into the Power Platform. But the Power Platform is really difficult to describe. I mean, that's a hard question, Rachel. I mean, it's like to come up with a single way of describing it. But I think
Yeah,
platform is absolutely the right term, because
yeah,
it is it is something that you can have your whole enterprise sitting on top of. So there
yeah,
you can build apps that sit on top of it. You can build
yeah, true.
integrations to line of business that sit on top of it. You
Yeah,
can buy third-party solutions that sit on
yeah.
top of it, both from Microsoft but also from third
Thought
parties.
process. Yeah,
And so, but I think the one of the real special things about the Power Platform is the fact that you can build apps using low code as
true.
well as pro code or high code, I think is.
Yeah.
I was at the, so I was at the not the Power Platform conference. I'm wearing the wrong t-shirt. I was at the European Power Platform conference, not
Yeah.
the North
That's
American one.
amazing.
In Dublin, actually, last week, and Charles Lamano was there, actually, on stage,
Yeah.
which was like, wow, I was fanboying Charles Lamano, front row. I was like, it's Charles, please. And he was talking about the Power Platform, and he was talking
Yeah.
about high code and low code.
Yes.
and high code obviously meaning sort of the more traditional software development,
Yeah.
and low code being more like you might build something in Excel, with
Yeah.
expressions. And
FX.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. PowerFX being the language, of choice
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Microsoft
True.
invented, and so it's really very much about efficiency and being able
Yes.
to build these apps efficiently, no matter which way you're
Yeah.
doing, because the
Yeah.
efficiency savings are both in the low code world, but they're
True.
also in the pro code, high code world. Because when
Yeah.
you deploy something to the Power Platform, irrespective of what style of coding you're doing, you're
Yeah.
writing less code. And I think
True.
that is always the thing for me, is like, irrespective of where you come from, you're writing
It's
less code.
amazing. Yeah. It's really,
Yeah.
really
So
amazing.
that's how I would summarize it. The Power Platform allows you to write less code.
Yeah. And makes your life easier.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. Makes your life a lot easier, no matter
Yeah.
where you're coming from.
Yeah, makes your life easier. So one other question I have to ask is that how did you get started with Microsoft Power Platform? How did you know about Microsoft Power Platform? Yeah.
Ah, yes. Well, it starts to go back to start to get misty eyed in the. So I was a I was a proper C++ developer. I saw myself as a software engineer, and
Yeah.
uh, but really, those are the dark ages. That was like the days when you're sort of using chisels and rocks, and it was
Yeah.
all very very inefficient, and life was
Yeah.
definitely not easy, made
Yeah.
made easy.
Nice.
So I first came up against lots of challenges with building business software. I moved over from
Okay.
sort of industrial control stuff
Yeah.
into business software, and I found lots of challenges, because it's like, okay, we need to respond to the business quickly. The business is constantly changing their minds, right? Oh
Yeah,
no, we don't
true.
want to do that now. We want to do this. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got to. So Microsoft had back then a sort of a great set of products that allowed you to build out business applications quite easily, and they
Okay.
were don't look anything like they do today. But
Yeah.
one day there was a new product that came on the market, which was called Microsoft CRM
Okay.
1.0.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that, it really attracted to me, was the fact that it was metadata driven. So
Okay.
you could go and build forms and build
Yeah.
views and build tables just
Yeah,
by
true.
going into the user
True.
interface and
Yeah.
changing it. And then you
True.
just publish it, and then it would work.
Yeah.
So when the business changed their mind, you could just easily make these changes and
Just
just publish it.
yeah.
So what does that sound like, right?
It's amazing. Yeah.
It sounds like a model-driven app. And well,
Yeah,
the thing
true.
that's exactly what happened, is that Microsoft CRM 1.0 grew up to be what we have
Yeah.
today as Dataverse and model-driven apps. And of
Wow.
course, what we have now is so much more than
Yeah.
that.
A
So many
lot.
more
Yeah.
features have been added in. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I started, and I got involved with the community quite a lot, because
Yeah.
I was working in an organization that then I could go to user groups. And so
Okay.
I went to user groups in London and Reading in the UK. And then
Yeah.
a great friend of mine, who's now a great friend, and Adam Vero,
Yeah.
he invited me to speak. He said, "Hey, Scott, why don't you come speak on some of the stuff you've been doing?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've never spoken at one of these events." So
Yes.
I went, "Okay, well, I'll give it a go." And yeah, I loved it, and people were really encouraging to me, and I think
Yeah.
that's
The
been
community is
fantastic,
amazing. Yeah.
because I think that
Community.
I can now be encouraging to other people. And so,
Yeah.
when you asked me to come on this podcast, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
really? Do you want to speak to me? Surely you should be speaking to some." There's much more exciting new, people that are in this doing it, more exciting people to talk to.
You're doing amazing.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I got into the platform. And then through all the amazing people in the community,
Yeah.
being inspired by things that they've been doing, I wrote
Yeah,
some
true.
tools like the Ribbon Workbench that allows you to customize the ribbon in model
Yeah.
driven apps. And I've done some
I
other
saw it
open
on your
source.
profile. Yeah. Saw it on your
Yeah.
profile. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I made it to where I am today, and no looking back,
Yeah.
I don't think.
That's an amazing story, Scott. That's an amazing story. And the community is so amazing because they're so welcoming. They don't care about your background or your knowledge. Yeah, very, very welcoming. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so another question I have to ask you is that how has your personal experience been working with Microsoft Power Platform?
My personal experience,
Yeah.
well, it's like all things. It's not always
Yeah.
great, right? It's not always plain sailing. And I think it's
Yeah.
wrong to say that anything is okay, so easy. You're not going to have any problems because let's face it, nothing's like that in life. There's always
Yeah,
challenges
true.
in life, and I think
Yeah.
that's how you can grow and you can learn. And what I think I love about the Power Platform, and probably the thing that I find is most special
Yeah.
for my experience is the fact that because
Okay.
I'm an MVP,
Yes.
it does mean that I get to be able to have quite a reasonably close relationship with Microsoft, and
Yeah.
they don't you don't hear about them, right, very much. But the Power
Okay.
Platform team, the people who are actually working on the features and the
Yes.
products, I mean, they are so, so clever. I mean, they
Yeah,
really are.
very, very. Like sometimes I'm like, how do they think about these things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they are.
And they don't you don't really hear about, they don't kind of come out and say,
Yeah.
look what I've done. It's
Yeah.
they're just quietly beavering away, and they listen to what people are saying, and
Yeah,
they
true.
really do. So contrary to maybe what maybe people might think, because you can't, when you find something that needs improving, you can't just get
Yeah.
it out the next day, right? There's
No, no,
a
it's true.
huge amount of quality control that has to happen. And,
Yeah.
there's always going to be things that slip through, but they do, I think, a fantastic job of making sure that that quality bar stays at a good
Yeah.
balance between speed of delivery
Yes.
and also enterprise grade stability and governance.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, if you wanted zero risk, well, you'd never make any changes, would you?
No, true. That's very true. There's nothing you're doing that there's not going to be a risk. There's
Exactly.
always going to be one.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so I
Sure.
think that's what I love about it, is that there's constant changes. I mean, let's face it, you kind of, how many times you've gone into the portal and you go, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that
This was
wasn't
not there
there. That
before.
wasn't there
Yeah.
yesterday.
This is new. This is
Exactly.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. That's true. They are doing an amazing job. Yeah, seriously, they are doing an amazing job. I think there was a time when I started my journey, I was thinking like, how are these people thinking about these things? How are they like? How do they think about these things to build something like this? Something so amazing like this is actually mind blowing every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like I said, you need to come on to the XRM Toolcast and tell us your story, right? And, and then it could be a whole episode dedicated to how you got to here, and, and what inspired you to start this podcast as well. I mean, that would be a
Yeah,
fantastic story, I think.
that'll be great. Thank you.
We need
Okay,
to get that
there's
set up.
also
Daryl's on
yeah,
holiday at the moment, so I have to kind of
yeah.
send
So
him an
it's
email
fine. I
first.
think my headset is falling. Okay. Okay, perfect. There's also one question I have to ask you is that, like, with your developer experience already, being used to C Sharp and every other programming language, there's one thing people think about when they hear about Power Platform. They think that, okay, Power Platform is just a low code tool. Like, Power Platform is not something a developer can work with. They can build, they think about it so low. And it's not supposed to be like that because Power Platform is doing so much, like you can build so much with Power Platform. So what do you say to those persons? Like how can developers utilize the tools in Power Platform?
Yeah, no, that's a really really good observation, because I think
Yeah,
it definitely happens.
yeah,
I did a presentation with April Dunham at the Powerful Devs conference a few months
yeah,
back, and we made the somewhat controversial decision to title our presentation,
yeah,
"Okay, I've been told to use the Power Platform. Now
yeah,
what?" Because
yeah,
I think that does happen. I think there are development
yeah,
teams that do get told because
yes,
the management has made the
yeah.
decision. They've
To
kind
use
of
the
bought
platform,
into this low code
no code.
idea. And so there sometimes is resistance, and usually the
Yeah,
resistance is because perhaps they're comparing the Power Platform against perhaps other low code tools that they've seen.
Okay.
And so my advice would be to anybody in that position would be
Yeah.
to sort of try and forget about the other low code platforms that you might have seen and really start to
Yeah.
dig into the capabilities
Yeah.
that the Power
The Power
Platform has.
Platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so much from a pro code perspective, so much so, for example, you can create React
Yes.
components and you can
Yeah.
deploy them
True.
directly into these
Yeah.
metadata driven forms and these low
Yeah.
code Power FX forms, and you can create custom connectors that can connect to an
True.
Azure hosted web API, or even
Yes.
to an
APIs. Yeah.
on-prem SQL database. You can
Yeah.
create virtual visualizations,
Which? Okay. Yeah.
data
True.
tables against SQL Server. And so there's all these connection points that enables you to extend that Power Platform. So
Yeah.
and we Microsoft and Charles talk about no cliffs a lot of the times. And what
Okay.
that means is that if you do hit a cliff, that, oh, okay, I can't do this using the low code
Low code.
techniques, then
Yeah.
the idea is, well, actually the Power Platform doesn't have that cliff. You can get over that cliff by using
Yeah.
pro code, whereas other platforms
Yes.
means that
You,
you
you can
can't
go
do
further.
anything. But I
Yeah.
think
You can.
perhaps for me, the thing that is most special about it
Yeah.
is that if you do look at other tooling sets out there that
Okay.
are low code, and
Yeah.
then you can extend, usually what happens is as soon as you start to extend using pro code,
Yeah.
there's no going back, right?
Really.
It's
Wow.
like you've opened
Yep.
the seal, the
Yeah. You
Pandora's
have
box
passed
is
the bridge.
open.
You have passed the bridge.
Yes, exactly. You've crossed the bridge and that's it. You can't
Yeah.
get back again. The bridge is all
Yeah.
crumbled underneath you.
Yes.
Whereas what's so cool about the Power Platform is it has a component-based architecture, so that you
Yeah.
can create these pro code components and you can publish them, so that
Yeah.
then you
True.
can still use them in the low code environment
Yeah.
around all the other low code, and
Yeah.
you can have people consuming those components that
Yeah.
only know how to use the low code. So maybe they're more information workers. They're people that may be much more used to creating really advanced Excel spreadsheets or
Yes.
things like
Yeah.
that. And they're using these components that are
Yeah.
built by, and Microsoft talk about this as fusion development, So it's like,
Yeah. Fusion development. Yeah. True.
yeah, so like the
Yeah.
two sides working together.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you've probably got some show notes for your podcast, but there's a really great link that if you're looking for
Okay.
all of the facility, all of the functionality you can get with the Power Platform, and it's an
Yeah.
aka.ms. So
Okay. I think
aka.ms/pp/dev.
I'm going to
Um,
get the link from you to post it on
yeah,
the
absolutely.
description of this
I'll
podcast.
give you that link, and it's
Yeah.
a really nice laid out page, actually,
Yeah.
because it does give you all of the different extension points that you
Yeah.
can use,
True.
so like custom connectors and PCF components and virtual
Yeah.
tables, and
Yeah.
all these
Custom
different
connectors.
synapse links and all of these different things.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that if you do want to play around with this stuff, and again,
Okay.
this is a thing I really encourage any developers, pro devs to do, is if you go to
Yes.
aka.ms/Power Apps Developer Plan, you
Yeah.
can get 3
Yes.
environments for free, right? And you
Yeah.
can
True.
just play.
Microsoft 365 developer account.
Yeah,
Free. You get
free.
access to Microsoft 365 apps. You get access to Power Platform. All
Yeah,
for free. So
exactly. That's
it's
right.
amazing. Yeah. So you can actually play around with it, see how the environment is. And also with developer accounts, you get access to premium connectors. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
a win-win.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And if
So
you do have any questions, there's a fantastic community that you can reach out
yeah,
to,
definitely.
and kind of, and people are always
Happy to help.
happy to help. Yeah, exactly. And that's so special about it, I think.
Yeah, they're always happy to help. And there's something you said that when you were describing developers working with Power Platform, you talked about fusion development. So what is fusion development? And then what is fusion development in Power Platform? Yeah,
Yeah. I think probably fusion development means different things to lots of different people. But for
yeah,
me, I think that one of the great things about fusion development is that it allows you to bring many different people together
Okay.
in a similar sort of way to like agile development works, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
agile development work obviously encourages people like user representation, people,
Yeah.
technical people, analysts, all to kind of work together to
Yeah.
actually to do that
Okay.
product increment. And fusion development is the same, but very much from
Yeah.
a technical implementation. So
Background. Yeah.
yeah, so you could actually have, because the Power Platform is this low code environment that allows you
Okay.
to really to build some really sophisticated stuff. You could have
Yes.
people that are maybe not aware of the more low
Yeah.
level aspects of building software, like performance optimization and network asynchronous communications, and some of the
Okay.
things that are more traditionally you have to worry about when you're doing high
Yeah.
code, pro code first, whatever you call it.
Yes.
um, so I think Fusion allows, because the Power Platform allows you to have
Yeah.
that component based architecture. You
Yes.
can all come together and you can work
Yeah.
to deliver functionality and
Yeah.
bring the skills to the table. So if those skills
Yes.
might be business domain knowledge, it
Yeah.
might
Citizen
be,
developer.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Citizen
Citizen
developer. Yeah.
development, or even somebody who is perhaps just really enthusiastic to learn how to build
Yeah. True.
applications. And I think that's often, I think, one of the overlooked aspects of fusion development is that
Yeah.
um, it allows people that are keen to learn about
Okay.
building apps to be
Yes.
able to be involved, rather than
That's
saying,
really
oh,
awesome.
you
Yeah.
can't get involved, because that's what traditionally happens, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you're not a software developer, therefore you
Yeah.
can't do this.
You're
Whereas
not a
fusion,
professional. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas fusion development gives you that environment that's a lot more
Yeah.
um, welcoming for people from all different backgrounds. And then, of
Yeah.
course, that means that ultimately you're going to get a better product.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's pretty amazing. Like it's creating an opportunity where everybody can come together and work on a particular, maybe a particular problem, a particular solution. So it's pretty amazing. And especially for developers, if you are listening, that perspective that you had, that okay, because I'm a developer I can't use Microsoft Power Platform. You have heard from Scott, you can do so much with Microsoft Power Platform. You don't have to think like Power Platform, you can extend it to wherever you want it to go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you are a Power Platform, if you are a pro developer and you've been
Yeah.
told to use the Power Platform and you think you can't use the Power Platform for some reason, just
Yeah.
get in contact with me.
Yeah. Get to
Oh,
cut out the Scott. Yeah, it's going to
yes.
put it through.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
just reach out to me and I'll have a conversation with you, because I'll be interested to hear about your use case, and because
Yeah.
it's all interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some other great resources that you can look at, like if you
Okay.
want some examples of how to create React components. There's
Yeah.
If you go to
Okay.
aka.ms/creator kit, there's
Yeah. Okay.
some really good it's open source, so there's lots of source code that you can
Yeah.
look at of how to build React components that you can just drop in. And then if you go to
Okay.
aka.ms/connectors, you can see
Yeah.
sort of
You have the
examples.
links. You have the links, like you know all of them.
It's all aks.ms. I have to say, it's all down to my good friend who at Microsoft, he's a cloud advocate at Microsoft, Daniel Laskovich, and
Okay.
he's like prolific with aks.ms. He's like, he forces me to memorize them as well. It's like,
Yeah, like you're naming them. Okay, that's okay. I'm
yeah,
like, wow,
that's
this is
right.
amazing. You just know all of them, and that's great. Yeah.
I need an ako.ms/Scott Durow. I think that's what I need. I, I,
Yeah,
I
that would be awesome.
I think I
Yeah,
did. I think I did have an AKS at one point. I don't know if it's still there actually. Let me
it
just see.
might be.
Yeah, I don't know
Might
if it
be.
is.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I don't think it is. I think they probably removed it. Yeah, but
Okay. Is it still there?
it's interesting. Oh no, it is actually. Yeah, so there is actually an
Okay.
aka.ms forward slash
I'm definitely
Scott
going to check it. Yeah.
aka.ms forward slash Scott PP. It takes me to it. It takes you to a Microsoft event I did. So yeah, there we go. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
That's
a
perfect.
random departure from what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. To progress, to talk about, like there's so many news around Microsoft CoPilots on
Mm,
Power Platform and also AI. But first, we are going to talk about Microsoft's Copilot. So, what do you think about this? Because people are thinking that okay, with all this technology, like with all these capabilities coming into Power Platform, it's going to we are not going to be able to utilize Power Platform the way we are supposed to. So, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's wow. It's really hard to wrap your head around because if you wind back
Yeah.
to like a year ago, like
Okay.
literally none of this was there, was it? I mean,
Yeah.
we were all just kind of, merrily progressing on in
Yeah.
our little worlds, and then suddenly, bam,
Yeah.
everything is AI. And co-pilots. I mean, goodness me, there's how many? There's like a Windows co-pilot now, isn't there?
Yeah. There
There's a
is. There is. There is.
co-pilot for everything.
Yeah.
And certainly I use Copilot in GitHub Copilot X,
Yeah.
for just
Okay.
on a daily basis. I mean, I find it unbelievable that it kind of reads my mind. I start to
Wow.
write some code and it just knows what code I want to write
Are you
most of the
serious? I
time.
haven't used it yet. I'm definitely going to use it.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. And it blows my mind most of the time.
Yeah.
And certainly that's where I find it the most useful. And you know
Okay.
what? I think the key is that again, the Power Platform was all about writing less code, right? So it's
Yeah.
easier,
True.
and more efficient, and makes your life easier,
Yeah.
as you said,
True.
Rachel.
Yeah.
So the thing about the co-pilots is that's exactly
Okay.
what they're doing. It's the same ethos. It's making your life
Yeah.
easier.
Easier.
So I think there is different mileage in the different co-pilots. I think some of the
Okay.
co-pilots are perhaps more useful than others. Certainly the
Yeah.
GitHub co-pilot for me, as
Yeah.
being doing and writing a lot of pro code, I find incredibly
Okay.
useful.
Okay.
But imagine a scenario where you have an Excel spreadsheet and you want to
Okay.
convert it into an app.
Yeah.
Being able to describe that using
Yeah.
AI is, a phenomenal
Wow.
thing because
It's amazing.
you
Yeah.
can then infer so much from both your Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
but also what the information you give it, and then start to have a conversation with it to say,
Yeah.
okay, well, you know what, make all my
Mm.
buttons change color, or I want
Yeah.
to,
It's
I
like I
want,
read your mind. That changed color. I was like, okay, this is what Scott wants to say.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, obviously, I make everything pink with purple polka
Yeah.
dots. That's what I want. I have to see if it can do that. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I think it's being able to
Okay.
do repetitive tasks
Yeah.
through that would normally take a long time,
Yeah.
but using a co-pilot to help you with that. I
Okay.
think that so I think a lot of people perhaps are feeling threatened by a lot of
Yeah.
these
True.
AI technologies. Do you think
Yeah.
that?
True. Right. Yeah. I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what you were sort of alluding to earlier. It's like people
Yeah.
fearing it, and
Yeah, they're
because
fearing it, thinking it's
um,
trying to take their job, or it's trying to make like it's not what they expect anymore. Like all through the process they have to go through, like the long process, they don't know what to do. Like with bringing Microsoft Copilot into Power Platform, they don't really have any idea on what the future looks like in Power Platform. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I- and I don't think it fundamentally changes
Yeah.
anything as we are at today. I think that because if
Okay.
you think about the Power Platform as it is, the features are the actual core functionality. The platform core
Yeah.
functionality is still very much the same. Obviously, there's
Okay.
still more functionality being added to it. The
Yeah.
co-pilots are sort of like on top of that.
Okay.
Well, there's two types of co-pilot, right? There's a co-pilot. There's the AI functionality that enables you to make it easier to build apps, but then also you can
Okay.
embed the AI, into
Okay.
your apps as well to enable you to
Yeah.
interact with
Yeah.
data.
True.
So you're
True.
asking
True.
questions about data
Yeah.
and that kind
True.
of thing.
Yeah.
So again, it's making it easier for yourself to build those
Yeah.
applications, rather than
Yeah.
replacing anybody's job. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any worry about that. Um,
Taking 5 hours to do just something that Microsoft Copilot to take. 10 minutes, 20 minutes to do for you. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. So
yeah,
we just need to learn how to use these tools. I think
yeah,
that's the key, is that we need to take the time and just start to embrace them, start to use them, learn
yeah,
what they're good at, learn what they're not so good at as well,
yeah.
because
True. There are
there is
limitations.
some things that they don't do very well.
Yeah.
And knowing about those and seeing that develop over time, I think is going to be a
Okay.
very interesting journey to see how,
Yeah. True.
how it gets better, and the functionality, especially with things like AI, the plugins that
Yeah.
in the AI pipeline. So you
Okay.
can use the chat GPT side of
Yeah.
things, and then you can have
Yeah.
plugins that give particular skills to that,
Okay.
and then to perform action. So those
Yes.
that architecture is going to be very interesting to see how it
Yeah.
moves forwards. So definitely, it's certainly not something to fear. And I think
Yeah.
Copilot, Microsoft's choice of the word Copilot, is brilliant. It's genius, because
Yeah.
it's exactly
Oh.
that. You're the pilot, and
Yeah.
it's the co-pilot. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. It's great because I think with Copilot, it's actually helping you. You don't have to. This explanation you gave is so amazing because a lot of people are so scared. Copilot is not there to take your job. It's there to make your life easier. Like everything about Power Platform is to make your life easier.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just to make your life
absolutely.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even for a co-pilot, a co-pilot needs a co-pilot, right? So,
Yeah.
if you're somebody who's doing, let's say
Yeah.
if you're a junior developer,
Okay.
in a pro code environment, or you're a citizen developer
Okay.
that's building apps, well, these co-pilots will just make it the apps that you can learn from them. You can
Yeah.
create better functionality, more sophisticated application
Okay.
functionality. Because
Yeah.
actually, I have to say that so the templates, right? I used to love when
Yeah.
Microsoft
Template.
published templates, because you
Yeah.
learn lots from templates, don't
Yes.
you?
True.
Because
You do.
you
Yeah.
load up a template and you start to pick it apart, and you go,
Yeah.
oh, right, okay,
Yeah. This
that's
how
what
this
they.
control works. Okay. This is function they use.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so when you're using the Copilot, you see, oh, you
Yeah.
don't. Oh, I can see how it's done that, and it kind of gives you more of a perspective on how the art of the
Yeah.
possible.
Okay. It's amazing. It's really, really amazing. Like this, especially this podcast episode is just to talk to developers, especially developers, to just let them know that Power Platform is amazing. There's so much you can do with Microsoft Power Platform, and even bringing the Microsoft Copilot into everything. Like, ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
totally.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really,
and
really
and
great.
if I would say that the other thing is that the Microsoft Power Platform is built upon Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, true.
So if you were to take any of the Microsoft Power Platform products and
Yeah.
dig into them and look at how they're built, so let's say
Okay.
Microsoft Dataverse,
Yeah.
Dataverse, if you look at it, Microsoft Dataverse has got um, data lake,
Yeah.
it's got the Synapse Analytics, it's got
Yeah.
Azure
True.
SQL, it's got blob storage, it's got
Yeah.
so much of the Azure functionality
Yeah.
built in
Inside of it.
is being used to actually build it. So like Power
Yeah.
Automate is built upon
Azure Logic.
yeah,
Yeah.
Logic apps,
Yeah.
exactly. um and so anybody who is building apps today using
Yeah.
that stack, the Azure stack,
Yes.
will actually, using the Power Platform, it means that what you're using is you're kind of using pre-built
Yeah.
components that use the same stuff that you're using. And the
Yeah.
thing is, and guess what? You can use alongside the Power Platform
Yeah.
all of the goodness of Azure. And because
Yeah.
it's all there sitting in the same environment, the same sort of
Yeah.
tenant,
True.
you can easily integrate. It's got Azure Active Directory to be able to, move
Yeah.
transparently between an Azure resource and a Power Platform
Yeah.
resource.
Power
It's
Platform.
all exactly the same.
Yeah. True. That's amazing. And there's one question I have to ask you is that how can developers start their journey, their learning journey in Microsoft Power Platform?
Wow, there's so many different avenues. Certainly, I
Yeah.
think learn.microsoft.com.
Yeah.
And if you go to the learning paths part
Yeah.
of that, there
Okay.
are some really, really fantastic learning curves. I mean,
Yeah.
it always takes me by surprise whenever I go there to see the
Okay.
new ones popping up.
Yeah.
And so it's free, right? So it's basically
Yeah.
like
Free.
courses that you can take for
Yeah.
free, and they've got lots of content. They've got videos in there.
Yeah.
They've got solutions that you can
Access.
download and
Yeah.
install.
And even I think they still have assessment. Like when you are
Yeah,
done with the learning part, they get to check you, stuff like that. So it's amazing. Yeah.
exactly. And it gives you little stars as well. I mean, it
Yeah.
gets
Gives you
like
stars.
badges and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like a badge, right?
Yeah. Everyone. I love badges.
It's
Yeah.
like being at primary school, kindergarten, you get stickers,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
New
still like that.
badges. New badges. Yeah. It's nice. Yeah. Okay. So, do you have any advice for our listeners? Do you have anything to tell them about how to work with Microsoft Power Platform? You already talked about how they can get started as a developer. Is there anything you want to say to them, like how you can work around Power Platform, how you can utilize it? Yeah.
Um, so I saw a fantastic tweet by Matthew Devaney on Twitter a
Okay.
couple of days ago, um, and he said, "Stop learning about apps, how to build apps, and start building
Okay.
apps."
Yeah. True. It's a
Yeah,
very
and
good
I think
advice.
that's just on the
Yeah.
money, totally on
Yeah.
the money, and
Yeah.
because yeah, that's how you build, that's how you learn, by
Yeah.
actually doing. You
Building.
can sit
Yeah.
and learn, you can sit and look and read as
Yeah.
much as you like currently I'm reading a book, which is a new book. I don't get paid by this. This is not
Yeah.
sponsored in any way, by it's by Peter
Yeah.
Krause, and it's called
Okay.
Democratizing RPA with Power Automate Desktop.
Show it very well.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a really good book, and it's talking about like citizen developers, like being able to use
Okay.
RPA, robotic process automation, to be able to like automate
Yeah.
stuff that you would do,
Okay.
automate everything, as they say.
Yeah.
Um, and it's great because it gives you really practical examples of how to do stuff, and then actually
Yeah.
and then recommends, right, do it now. These are
Yeah.
the steps you should do,
Yeah.
and
Follow the steps.
that's the way I've learned everything. And I think I've certainly observed when I do teach
Yeah.
classes and things that's how people learn best.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like you can't just continue reading and reading and reading, and you're not trying to implement what you have read. Or when you are building, you get to come through, like you get challenges. Maybe you are working on an application where you have to work on a control, and that control is not working as expected. You get to see that okay, maybe next when you get the solution to that particular challenge, next time when you are working on another application that still involves that implementation, you can just say, I've seen this before. This is how to do this. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So
So yeah,
it's
good.
perfect. Yeah. I think I should check the comments. Okay, we have no questions. We just have great question. Native developers don't see Power Platform as a viable means for building solution. Yeah, I think that's what we have been driving through. I'm talking about. Yeah,
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 yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I think that learning about the features
yeah,
is always going to be the way that starts to unlock the possibilities.
yeah.
And it's very easy to dismiss something that
Okay.
says low code.
Yeah,
I think we're all there. We all go through that at some point.
yeah,
You sort of discount something because perhaps you
yeah,
don't have the time to look into it. And you maybe don't know very much about it, or you don't know somebody to ask about it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we've all been there, and that's a really
yeah,
hard one. If you don't have the time to look into something, then
yeah.
there's not really any easy option. And sometimes if you were under massive time pressure, if
Okay.
you got literally got to deliver something,
Yeah, a
um,
deadline.
yeah, against a
Yeah,
deadline. We've all
yeah,
been there, right? Then, well, actually,
yeah,
you've got to do something that as works and
yeah.
is tried and tested. So it's a
Okay.
luxury sometimes that you don't have, to be able to say, we're going to try this. But I think the Power Platform, and certainly low code, has to
Yeah.
be looked at from a strategic perspective. It has to be
Okay.
looked at that from that very much as like we're adopting about the Power Platform as a strategy rather than
Yeah.
as a sort of like a point solution.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I think the person who asked that question about native developers don't see Power Platform as a viable means for building solution. I hope you have listened to us from the beginning of this podcast, and Scott Durow has done justice to your question. Yeah.
I'm just going to put
So,
in the comments
okay.
the link, the aka.ms. So let me
Okay.
just
That would be
type them.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got.
That would be perfect.
So there was just two really that it was
Okay.
that the pp.dev one,
Yeah.
that one, and then the
Okay.
other one, which was the Power Platform developer plan, which was the
Yeah.
I hope
Developer
it's going to
accounts.
work.
Yeah.
I hope I've
Hopefully.
memorized them correctly. then, then they'll go nowhere.
Okay.
But
I think I should share
oh,
them on
I
the
don't know what
screen.
happened there. Didn't go on a separate
Yeah.
line. But anyway,
At least they'll know that it stops at dev, then the aka.ms is another link.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much everyone for listening to this podcast with our guest speaker Scott Durow, who has done amazingly well. So bye. See you in the
Thanks
next
ever so much for
podcast.
having me. It's been great talking to Rachel.
Yeah,
In fact,
thank you so much.
and
Thank you.
we're gonna get that XRM Toolcast episode sorted out.
Yeah. I- Okay. So everyone, this podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, and also on Google Podcasts. Bye.
Bye.